Hello YouTube, this is Morian Airspeed Prime here with my next Attack on Titan anime review. This one's going to be for Season 4, Part 2, Episode 10. Overall, I thought, once again, an enjoyable episode, but maybe for me, one of the slightly weaker episodes, just because when it ended, it's probably the first time in a while with Attack on Titan, the episode ended, and I was just like, oh, is that it? That's all we're doing? Like, oh, okay. I just felt with this one that they maybe overdid it on the whole, like, we're forced to kill our former comrades point. Like, I get it, it's a big point, and they really wanted to get it across, and with someone like Connie having to, kill one of his former comrades, that was a kind of big moment. I just felt like you had a whole nearly like 7 minute long kind of scene at the start effectively talking in or around this. What's the plan for our attack on the harbor? Is there any way to get around this without killing, or will we have to kill? And then the whole actual dynamic of the scene, and that, like, they had a couple of instances of like the fight scene actually happening, and I assume it will continue in the next episode, but the focus here was definitely on just that. For the most part, those four characters end up here next to the flying boat. In that, like, Ani, Carmen, and then these other two guys who they name and seem to get across that, like, oh yeah, we're former comrades. And it's like, this would work so much better and have way more impact if these characters were actually people that we knew. Just something like that would have made this work, I think 10 times better. As it is, it's like, I see what you're doing. It's fine. But I also sort of feel like, who's this person? In that I don't necessarily associate a lot of the characters who have sided with Floch as necessarily like directly being the, comrades of Connie and everyone else. Again, there's the whole point of all of our main characters in siding against Eren effectively now have to side. Part of the first stage of this plan involves killing other islanders to make that happen, and it's effectively just that idea of like, how have we got ourselves into this position where things are so messed up that this is what we have to do. And that point is fine. I just wanted a little bit more from the episode. I thought the best part of the episode was definitely the Magath scene after he was done breaking Yelena's arm. Because I still am not really sure where they're going with her character. The way they're presenting her just feels a little weird to me, and I'm not really sure what the significance of her is. I think it was fine early on. I've just really lost track of what they're trying to go for with that character. But Magath, after I think probably deserved of criticism, like in that, like, I was wondering like which characters are we meant to side with in this debate that like effectively he and John were having last episode. And I was definitely leaning on the idea of Magath, I think you're in the wrong here. I get what you're trying to do in terms of not just completely dismiss the past, but I think you're being the kind of more childish one in this debate rather than the others who you're accusing of doing that. And so to see him actually kind of effectively, come out and apologize and just be really honest about the fact that he is having trouble coming to terms with what happened, and he realizes that he was sort of trying to justify the actions of Marley when, the characters who have just joined up with him have willingly extended their hands. They're, willing to betray their comrades to make this sort of alliance work to go against Eren. But the Marleyans haven't had to make any sort of like concession necessarily to that, and so it's now, I suppose, that idea of both sides are making those concessions, like acknowledging that effectively, yes, we had all this time in our history where we were oppressed by Eldians, but when we then got the power, we chose to effectively oppress the Eldians ourselves. We also need to take a step back from that, in the same way that you guys are taking a step away from just joining up with Eren and effectively winning. So that was a scene that I think was much needed for that character, who had otherwise, I think, felt very, very reasonable. But then the scene from the last episode made you feel about him a little bit differently. And they got that back on track here, which I thought was pretty good. Annie being sort of positioned as the character who's, she doesn't want to do the sort of like wanton kind of killing that she kind of is responsible for in the past, and is obviously asking the questions of like, okay, if there is the plan to accomplish what we need to do while not getting the civilians in danger and also not killing the Jaegerists, let me know and we'll do it. It didn't really feel like she was necessarily calling them out on that, but just that I don't really see that there is a plan. I'll do it if there is one. Armin, what is the plan? And I think Pieck is the one who has to be like, yeah, there really isn't a plan. There ends up kind of being a plan, but it's kind of clear going in that it's probably not going to work. It relies on Floch being exceptionally gullible to just assume that Armin can charge in and be like, oh, we need to take the flying boat to go after them because they're here. And I like the idea of him kind of thinking about it and that he doesn't really know the full extent of like, what's going on here. Have they betrayed us? Have they not? They'd be great allies to have on our side. And he's just thinking about it, and like, he's found himself in this kind of big leadership position when he was never that significant of a character, and he's just kind of running through it, and is kind of forced to kind of eventually realize that, okay, no, they are trying to betray us, fight, and effectively Floch's call to action to fight all of their former comrades is what causes this incident. Like Mikasa comes through, gets a little bit of an action scene. We do get to see Reiner and Annie transform. So a little bit of sort of teamwork there in that, oh yeah, like Annie has been absent so much that she hasn't really experienced the new technology that's anti-Titan. So she actually could be at a bit of risk here, going up against all these characters with Thunder Spears, because while she has her I suppose Titan gimmick is effectively that she has some of the armored powers. She kind of is like an attack Titan light, but with maybe more martial arts skills type thing. So she is a little bit vulnerable in that way. So it was nice to see kind of Reiner come in and kind of back her up from behind, because he's more familiar with the sort of tactics at play here. But like I said, most of the main fighting was just a sort of background to the Connie Armin scene on the pier with the dynamite and so on. Kind of crazy moment where like Armin just gets like shot a bunch of times. They never really bring up the idea that like he's going to transform, because if he transforms he blows up the boat because it's right next to them. But it's just that idea that even though he's healing, he doesn't fight back, whereas it forces like Connie into a situation where he has to act. For me, like, I get what they were going for, that like they presented Connie as being the one who was most like against the idea of like, I can't believe we have to do that. So him shooting one of his own former allies is a big deal. I just maybe didn't feel it was as big of a deal as they were trying to make it out, because I'm coming at it from the perspective of like, we haven't seen Eren in quite a while, and kind of, his motivations are important in this too. Are we ever going to go back to Eren and address what he's actually doing? And, is he just gone crazy, wanting to wipe out the world? Like, what are his motivations? I really want to know that. And the fact that they were willing to give this much time to this plot point to effectively just kind of lock the alliance in place, that, these are the kind of terrible things that have to be done to make this alliance happen. That's fine. I just, I hope the stuff with Eren gets the time it needs when it comes down to it. Because other than that, there wasn't too much else really going on with the episode. Like, again, it's kind of noticeable that like Mikasa is not really in the spotlight too much outside of fighting, whereas like, do you think they need to position her more as being a main character, especially if like her arc that they've roughly set up in the background is going to end up maybe being one of the key kind of themes and statements when they get down to the final battle. I just feel they're missing out by not giving her the time and setup that she actually needs. Whereas like, we're really doing a lot of stuff with Connie here. Armin kind of gets a moment related to what's going on in the last episode, and like he's fine, I guess, what they're doing with him, but there's more definitely that does need to be done. So yeah, I guess we're gonna wrap up the fighting here, and then we will get the flying boat. I'm guessing the next episode or two will see the death of Flock. I wonder will Flock end up taking out one of our characters with him, because I think he will remain loyal to Eren and the Jaegerist as we go. And his death will, I think they'll play his death as kind of being this sort of like, we needed to do this because you were leading the sort of faction that has sort of lost its mind with regards to like supporting this genocide, but also address the sort of tragedy of what turned him into this, and that the point that a lot of the Jaegerists kind of are making, like, is bad overall, but you also, from the Eldian perspective, like, understand it to a certain extent. Why, you addressed it in this episode with one of the guys. I think Connie's holding him down, and he's kind of like, but like, we're just kind of trying to protect the island. Like, why don't you guys understand? And they like agree with that, but just taking it to those extremes is too much. So again, that point is fine. I just feel a lot of season 4 has just been playing with that sort of general point of like really laying it on thick of like, there's nuance to this. There's a lot of nuance to this. It's very in the middle. There's no one way to look at things. I'm just worried when we finally get to the final kind of points that they might have missed an opportunity to do other development with other characters and so on. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say on this one. Maybe leaning a little bit more negative than I have kind of recently, but I still did enjoy the episode. If it flew by, it maybe flew by a little bit quickly, and I wanted a bit more out of it. A lot of it also comes down to, I think there's 2 episodes left of the season, and obviously there's way more content than they can ever cover in 2 episodes, and they're not going to promise Neverland Season 2 anime this and try and cram it all in. So what's happening next? Is it a part 3 of the season, or are they doing the movie, which I think seems to be what more and more people are saying? If the movie gets a good like worldwide release, that's fine, but typically it means that's going to mean, like, if they do it as a movie, it is going to mean it's going to be less accessible to a lot of people, unless they really make it like a lot of the anime companies really make it an event and make it so that very few people will miss out on it. But because like for example, like the last Sword Art Online movie that came out like a couple of months ago, in December, there was only like basically like 2 or 3 showings of that movie like in all of Ireland. I managed to get out to one, but that like if I was busy that day, I might have missed the only like accessible showing of that movie. And that's sort of the fear with this, is that already, like, as an anime only, it kind of feels like, oh, I have to avoid spoilers for the manga. But now I'm going to have to maybe avoid spoilers for the anime movie that some people will have access to, but other people won't. And it really is, again, forces you to go like online to, find like basically an illegal copy of the episode. So there's that other factor as well of just, it's easier to watch the episodes when they do it as like a TV anime. And they'll have more time if they give it even like a half season or however long it's going to take to cover the ending, because I'm assuming at the point, like, we have maybe 1-2 episodes left of this, and by the end of maybe episode 11 we'll have properly fully dealt with everything going on here at the harbor, and then we're going to end with the final episode being on the ship, and I suppose arriving on the scene of where all the Titans are, including where Eren's Titan is, the founding Titan. And they'll just kind of cliffhang it there on the idea that all of our characters are on this sort of like one airship, and they are going to have a massive fight against all these giant titans and Eren. And because that's one thing that the episode did mention in dialogue, there is that Hanji's prediction on where the titans are is that they've already hit Marley and have likely already annihilated a lot of the sort of cities directly there on the coast. Which again, it's kind of like, could you not have even cut over to that to confirm that? No, we're still being that sort of secretive with Eren. Okay. So yeah, to wrap up the video, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this episode, how you think they're actually going to do the actual like finale of Attack on Titan, part 3 or movie or whatever they're going to do. But other than that, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.